Let's look at 1889 here. This is my first deep thought game of the 18XX series. I am a total XX fanboy. I had some worries when I read the rules for this one. And I'm not going to go too much over the components. Jason, who gave me this copy, did a wonderful job on them. The only thing I can say, and I'm not sure if he was the one who reduced the size or if that's a deep thought decision that they actually produced it, in a format that you'd have to blow it up to make it bigger. The small size is kind of an interesting idea. We got these tiny little counters, and the board is much, much smaller. Everything is very tiny on it. It allows you to play it on a smaller surface, obviously, which is very cool. On the other hand, it is a little bit easier to kind of screw things up, bump things and stuff, the smaller the surface. So that's always a factor, when you want to consider something like that. So I don't know if these originally came in that small size, and I'm not sure which way I prefer. It was nice to have something that fit on the table without making a mess all over the place. It really, most XX games are just fairly big. And this is a small game to begin with. Big in terms of the footprint that they take on sort of a normal size table. If you got a conference table or something, who cares, right? I got a pretty decent sized table though, and I think it's not quite conference table size. I used to have one. And I think this would be tight in like more than 4 players with normal XXs, whereas this one fits pretty damn well actually, with all 6 players. So one of my worries when I looked at this immediately was, is it just watered down 1830, or is it just an 1830 clone? That's the feeling I had with 18AL and 18GA, and I can definitively say no, it's not. Between the terrain, the shortened train cycle on it, and a number of other aspects, you don't walk into this and play 1830. You can't use those same strategies, and if anything, it's a more condensed 1830, which is to say it feels almost like it's take all the harshness of 1830 and shrink it down into a smaller size, but keep all that harshness. So you have less periods where you're kind of and certainly in the game I played, I'm not sure if that's always going to be the case, because people might learn to be cautious in this. But it is going to be a shorter game no matter what. Anyway, what I'm saying is 1830 has these periods which are a little long and which kind of drag out the game. Now, the danger with removing them is certain strategies rely on that. And is this game removing them? I'm not absolutely certain, but it feels that way. And if it is, you're kind of cutting off some of the big ideas that one can walk into an 1830 game. It's an interesting balance. I actually prefer this game. At least the first blush of it is, wow, that was harsh. That's the way I felt about the 1830 short game too. Is how bloody harsh the damn thing was. And then, as I got more used to the long game, and I played the short game like once or twice. The long game has a little bit more leeway to build railways and to go for long-term prospects. And I fear that this might, for positive or negative, this might be more like the 1830 short game. Much, much harsher, but, on the per turn harshness rating, but also maybe not allowing for some of the depth of strategy that an 1830 allows. And this is the issue with 1870 as an example. 1870 I don't particularly like, because it stretches out the harshness. There's as much harshness as 1830, but it's a longer game overall. There's more room for that long-term expansion work, and I guess you could say the same about 2038 as well. So neither of those are among my favorites simply because they take too much time, and maybe they're not harsh enough for enough of the game. So this one's kind of in that opposite direction. This is really, really harsh, and that appeals to my tastes greatly. But then there's the question of, okay, well, how much replayability would this one have? And if you're talking about making a really nice copy like this and paying the $35 or whatever it costs to license it on top of that, it's a fairly significant, investment. And on the other hand, if you're talking about buying the Deep Thought, premium edition or whatever, that's expensive. I know that the couple that I ordered were over $100 each. And in addition to that, over $100 each, I've never gotten them. I mean, they didn't take my money or anything. It's just there's this humongous backlog. I ordered it. Jeez, the first one I ordered, I think, close to 7 years ago, and I'm kicking around in the 90s. And it just isn't moving. And I, tried to ask. I sent emails to try to see, hey, am I on the wrong website? From what I can tell, nobody at the company responded. I guess they're too busy ignoring producing any games. And look, the guy is obviously not doing this for a living. You can't produce games of this limited, desirability for a living. He's doing it as a hobby and probably just can't catch up to it. But it's just such a pity because there are a couple of them there that I really, really wanted to look at. And seeing the quality of this one, that it isn't just a little 1830 clone, even though it's pretty much the same rules as 1830, that it really does, throw you a game changer in a way that just moving 1830 to another location wouldn't do. There were some very interesting choices here that made a very, very cutthroat game that I'd like to play a little more. There just may not be the broadness of strategy. But their production and distribution model just does not work for me, because if I print and played something and paid $35-40 for the licensing to for the right to print one out, I would end up with the kind of crap that I made for 18AL or whatever. I just look at it and I say, I don't even want to play this. It's just such crappy components. If I had the kind of patience and capability to do little craft jobs or contract them out properly or something, I don't know, what Jason did to produce this so well. He may have gone and had things printed professionally, but then I'm probably spending as much on the materials, and I'm still kind of investing some effort, significant effort, into obtaining it, at the printer or whatever, and, arranging to have these printed and laminated and everything. And that's just beyond me at this point in my life. If I had very few games, I'd be willing to go through that extra effort. Right now I have tons and tons of games, and although I really do want to look at a couple of these, especially the North Italian one that nobody likes because it's too complicated. I think it's 1839, and the very stock market one, the starting of the stock market, 1819. Both of those intrigue me greatly. And there are others too. It's just like I'm not going to buy every 18XX game that I can get my hands on. I'm not that devoted to it. Although I would love to, be around a group that was. There's a couple of guys here willing to play, and when we count heads, we get to 4. 4 is the magic number, but we haven't been able to work out a way to get 4 all at the table at once. And it's really strange to me because an 18xx game, either this or the short game of 1830, doesn't feel like something that's too far from the realm that Euro players are willing to do in their heavier Euros. In fact, 18xx, it has always been a proto Euro design to me. The same kind of, really anything Tresham does is this, the same kind of real commitment towards gameplay and precision in design, and really, really carefully getting the most bang for the buck. Now, this obviously isn't a Tresham design directly, but everything's based on his designs here to some extent. And certainly this one, with how close it is to 1830, is. So, yeah, I mean, I go into this again and again, this proto-Euro idea, and how Tresham, Civilization was that way, 1830 was that way, and, well, the Dutch Revolt game, I would say that's been counter-influenced. The backwash from Euros has come back at it, but it's still a very good game. Anyway, this is one I would definitely recommend. Even if you're not an 18xx fan right now, this is not a bad entry point. It's got the beginner's game to kind of tone down some of the harshness. The tracks become more common. There's more trains, I think, in it. I'm not sure the beginner's game is really a beginner's game. In a sense, I would say the main game of this is closer to the 1830 short game, which I always considered a beginner's game anyway. I think the harshness is the thing you want as a beginner. You want to get hit with that and learn that real fast. And then you're maybe more into the subtlety of the longer track lays. But with that beginner's game, you may have something that actually has that additional depth that an 1830 has. It may give you more opportunity to use some of those privates too. So maybe some kind of bastardization of the beginner's game, because the beginner's game kind of limits the privates and stuff in a way that I don't really like. Anyway, I think this one's a pretty damn good one. At least as of right now, again, replayability, I can certainly get 4 or 5 plays out of this. The question is, would this be something that I can bring out like 1830 or 56, that I can play again and again and know that there are always going to be different ways of coping with it, even if there's sort of this kind of opening book that develops. So, hey, it works for chess and Go. Why not for 18xx? Up it goes.